Well, hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Gabe Pyle, the program director for the Industrial and Innovative Design program here at the International Center for Creativity. I'm here with another grad, Nick Mahek, and I'm so excited to have this conversation because Nick's journey, like many industrial designers, doesn't look like anyone else's journey. So I'm thrilled to hear from this incredibly talented individual, but let's just talk to him. Let's hear from him. Nick, could you please tell us about yourself, what year you graduated, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so as he said, my name's Nick. I graduated in 2021. Feeling a little dated now, but 2021 graduated from Cedarville in the ICC, and then from there went on to do a footwear design internship at Crocs, and that was in the midst of COVID and all the fun things there. But that was remote. I stayed in Ohio for that time, and then I got hired on full time after the internship as an accessories designer. And after about 3 years at Crocs, that led to a lot of jibbitz designs, like the charms that you see in the Crocs. People call them giblets or charms or whatever. But did that for about 3 years, had some collaborations that I designed within that time as well. Some of those projects include like Luke Combs, SpongeBob, Levi's, Western Hydrodynamic Research, all the fun things there. That was a really, really fun kind of different job. But some time out in Colorado was really cool to see everything out west, and growing up in Ohio, kind of getting out and seeing different parts of the world, meeting new people, diving into footwear culture and realizing how small it is. Everybody knows everybody kind of thing, and someone's connected to someone somehow. So never burn bridges. That's lesson number one. But everything was really cool. Met some really great people there. Even now, have friends through that job still, keeping in touch with them about career stuff or non-career stuff. We'd go out and ski together, golf together, really just like get to know each other inside and outside of work. So that was a really, really cool experience. From Colorado, I went to Austin, Texas, for a short stint at Bear Performance Nutrition Supplement Company. Worked as a brand designer for about 4 months, and then realized brand design is not my passion. So kind of picked myself up and figured out, okay, what are we doing next? And started looking around, saw a job in aviation, which is where I am now at Cirrus Aircraft. I am located in Knoxville, Tennessee, loving it. But yeah, this job kind of like was framed to me in a way with the job description that was like, that's me. So day to day, it looks like me meeting with clientele, a lot of them, small business owners, really successful people that are into aviation. They're pilots, they're flying their own planes. So that's what brings them to Cirrus. Cirrus is known as one of the best in private aviation. So the cool thing about our planes, every plane made through Cirrus has a built-in parachute to the frame of the plane. So if anything were to go wrong in the air, anyone in the cabin can reach up, grab a handle, pull it, and it's called CAPS, and it deploys this rocket-propelled parachute that then carries the airframe down to the ground and has saved a whole lot of lives, has given a lot more confidence to pilots and people in aviation. You have, some couples where the husband's like, I want to fly, and the wife's like, I'm not getting in a plane if you're flying. I don't feel safe, and this really just gives like a feeling of confidence and protection as you're going through different flights. Another cool thing that we have is safe return is like a button in the plane that you can press, and it is like a button that immediately takes the plane into autopilot and starts pinging outside areas for the nearest location to land at an airport. And then we'll have a countdown on all the screens of like where it's going, what the plane is doing, and will fly itself, land itself, and stop itself without any of the passengers having to do a thing. So that comes in handy if the pilot becomes incapacitated. Is that, yeah. So just kind of like passes out, whatever, things happen in the air. And that just really gives a lot of confidence and safety to the people inside the plane. So that's kind of a little bit about the planes here at Cirrus. But as far as what I do specifically, we have a program called the XI Design Department, and that really gives people the option to fully customize their plane. So they have the options from exterior paints to interior seating, leather options, Alcantara, which is like a suede option, down to the color of the stitching. We've paint matched people's vehicles. If they have a Bentley or a Porsche that they want to match back to, we can then start a paint development. And by the time that they're in our studio designing with us, we have a paint sample in hand that is like developed in aviation standards, based off of their vehicle. We've had people match their purses, the purse leather to their interior seating. It's just kind of like endless possibilities, and that's really exciting for people, but also really overwhelming. So it's kind of a job of like dialing in, like, hey, we have a lot of possibilities, but like, let's guide you to your finished product. And then from there, there's about an 8-month cycle where the planes are being built in Duluth and then painted in Benton Harbor / Knoxville, some finishing up things. And then we have a delivery day experience where they come, get driven in on Audis to this delivery hangar. There's a big curtain. The curtain goes up and their plane's sitting there, light show, smoke show, music, and everything. So just a really special moment to like capture the work that's been put into the plane by the people here at Cirrus, and then also capturing like the story that the customer wanted to tell through their plane. We've had people like deboss their dog's paw print onto like yoke grips, which is like what you steer the aircraft with. Obviously, people's logos being thrown in their planes, some sayings being embroidered on the seating, just some really like special things where people can do whatever they want to their aircraft.
So it sounds like you're doing some really incredible work. And you talked about your journey from Crocs to Bear Nutrition to now Cirrus. And if you had asked me when I was teaching you years ago, I'd say, yeah, Crocs, totally get it. I know this guy loves footwear. Bear Nutrition, this guy loves fitness. He loves taking care of his body. Totally makes sense. What about that Cirrus job listing did you see that said, that's me?
I think what I learned about myself at Crocs is that I really loved the collaboration aspect, and I figured that out while I was working on the SpongeBob collection of all things. But it was kind of like meeting with people. They kind of have this vision in their minds of like what they think they want it to look like, and then being able to like create that and put it on a product or a render in Photoshop, and then eventually seeing an in-hand sample and then seeing a final product and seeing it out in the world was like something super important to me. So in this job description, kind of had some personalization titles where that was like my title at Crocs. So I was like, okay, I can do side views of shoes, plan views of shoes, all the things. And it's just like translating that onto the side view of a plane, a plan view of a plane. And it's a much larger scale than footwear. It's literally scale, like size. But I don't know, like the thought of the excitement behind that and the possibilities of what I could do and what I could learn here was something really intriguing to me, and still learning on a daily basis. The amount of questions I ask from the beginning until now is obnoxious, but it's how I learn and how I create relationships with people and gain trust. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know. If someone asks like, hey, can we do this? It's like, I don't know, but I can ask someone who does know. So not being afraid to ask the questions. But yeah, I think going back to the original question, it was, how did I, end up in aviation? I think at a place where I was after Austin, being in Austin, it was kind of a dark spot for me. I didn't know, what my next move was. I didn't know if I was going to stay in design. I didn't know if I was going to go back to school. It was tricky. But I think my mom and people that I talk to regularly about like life stuff, it's like trust God, and he wants what's best for you. He has your best interests in mind, and that's hard to believe when you're in a position where you're down. But now that I'm here and would love for this to be the end goal of where I'm at until I retire, but just trusting everything happens for a reason, and figuring out what's next is a journey that everyone goes through or should go through. So,
yeah, God has an unbelievable, unending ability to redeem terrible things, bad seasons, and
yeah,
it's Uh, there's nothing beyond his scope, and I am grateful for that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about some of the things that you do day to day. So you mentioned you're meeting with clients, and you mentioned some of the Photoshop stuff that you're doing in for SpongeBob. By the way, I want to put a pin in that conversation and come back to the collaboration exercises. How often are you meeting with clients? How often are you sitting in front of a computer? Are you drawing on your iPad? Like, what does it look like to develop their vision?
Mhm. As far as day to day, like what I work in right now, it is Photoshop heavy. So I live in Photoshop. Sometimes hop into Illustrator and make like some quilting patterns for a seat, and then just import it right into Photoshop as a smart object and manipulate it to fit kind of the shape of the seat. But it is Photoshop. We use the Wacom Cintiqs or Wacom's. People call them a whole bunch of things, but we do use a Cintiq to, and this is kind of like a setup of the studio. So like that chair is where I sit, and then we have this massive TV that everything I'm doing is shown on that TV, and I'm kind of sitting there sketching and putting ideas in front of them, and they don't like things, they do like things, and kind of just like working through it in live action and getting to a result that works for them. So it's Photoshop as far as like what the work entails, and then the build PDFs, which is what we send to engineering, paint, graphics, interiors, multiple revisions of, going back and forth between engineers and our interiors team, and all the codes of materials and paints and all the fun things until it's like, okay, we're good, and then sign it off and go. But as far as like workload, I'm doing about 2 design sessions a month where I'm meeting with customers and designing for them. And in the midst of that, it takes about a month to a month and a half to kind of finalize their document. So at some times I'm working on, like 2 weeks ago, I was working on like 7 planes at once, and that's a lot. But other times I'm working on 2 to 3. So it's always, bouncing around to different projects, which is another fun thing that I like. I don't like doing the same stuff every day and the monotony of all that. So it was like that in footwear, and it's like that here. So bouncing around and getting someone who wants a pink and green plane to someone who wants like a gray and black plane. So
Yeah.
bounces all
So
around.
what's one of the craziest things that you've seen, either color combos or custom requests that someone has made?
Pink, purple, pink and purple,
Okay.
I'd say.
Yeah.
And that was interior and exterior, and it was just like total. They showed up in a pink flight suit to pick up the plane, and I was just like, person loves their pink.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
hate to it.
So okay, so you're live sketching or live updating an image in front of them. I have to ask, how is AI creeping into your industry? Are you seeing that as a tool, as a threat? Are people coming to you with AI images and saying, "I want my plane to look like this"?
That was my last session. Honestly, it hasn't happened too often, and they come in with, I don't even know which AI they were using, but it was spitting out like boom, like plane after plane after plane after plane, and they were like, "Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?" And you have to like kind of figure out like how to, relax and be like, hey, what I'm doing takes a little bit more time than telling AI to switch things over. But as far as like a threat, I don't think so, because proportions are always tricky with whether it's footwear, aviation, whatever it is. You can usually look at something and be like, that doesn't look right, because you see it. You're able to go outside and see planes, or you're able to look down at your feet and you see shoes all the time. So it's like if you see something that's made in AI and it's just a little bit off, it's like something's not right there. I think it can't, I don't use it personally for ideation or visuals for myself. I think it can be maybe a tool in some ways. I have yet to kind of figure that out, because the limitations, especially with aircraft design, it's, black can go in these areas and can go a little bit in the mid body of the plane and load it up on the tail, but like the software of AI doesn't know the complexity limits of solar limitations, of how dark we can go on the fuselage of a plane, just like all those kind of things. And that's where I think the in-person or an actual human doing the work like is able to be taught that. And maybe AI is eventually, but you can't beat the customer interaction points and the relationships you build with someone. And, before each design day, we have a dinner in downtown Knoxville at various locations with that person and their families or whoever they bring along. And you're able to sit and learn about their life and what excites them and like what they want their plane to feel like. And, you can really just figure out some really cool things about someone and dinner conversation, and then hop into the studio the next morning and spend all day with them and building that relationship to where they pick up the plane. It's like you're their friend now. And it's like you have a relationship with this person. And at events that we go to, like we have Oshkosh coming up in Wisconsin in July. It's like a massive air show. Planes are flying everywhere, fighter jets, whatever. And we have this big Cirrus booth, and customers come by and they ask for you because they want to see you and they want to catch up with you and how are things going and tell you about their experience with their plane that you designed for them. And it's a really, really cool atmosphere to be in.
I hadn't thought about how relational your job specifically is. Like I've talked with other designers so far and asked them the AI question, but the reason that AI is not necessarily scratching the same itch in your industry is because you are building such excellent relationships, and that's another reason that I think this is such a great job for you, is because you are so relational. That's
Thank
you. Everyone loves Nick. It's so likable. And so this is a great position for you to be in, where you get to have that conversation with them, build that relationship. And that's something that I am very grateful. I don't think AI will ever be able to recreate that.
No.
As much as it tries, it's never going to be able to be the kind of human that you are. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I put a pin in the conversation about collaboration with SpongeBob is the way I was going to phrase it. What does it look like when you're working with the Luke Combs properties or the SpongeBob properties? Or are you given a pretty strict set of guidelines and say SpongeBob IP has to use these colors, has to look like this? And tell us a little bit more about the collaboration between you and the companies that you work with for these jibbitz.
Yeah. I think mainly it's just, the first one I was on was Luke Combs, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet Luke Combs. I didn't meet Luke Combs. No, I didn't. It was just, I know, it was just his team, and that's, sometimes the people do come along with it. But in that situation, he did not. And it's usually just, the team with the specific like brand guidelines where it's like, we can do this, we can't do this, or especially with SpongeBob, like they had assets that they had already made from years of projects where it was like, here's your toolbox of what you can use and kind of figure out how you want it to look. So that was a really cool one because, I grew up on SpongeBob and loved watching it. And my parents were always saying, you're losing brain cells, watching SpongeBob. But you know what? It turned out okay. Gave me a
Yeah. Someday I'm going to design SpongeBob jibbitz. Just you wait.
Yeah, you wait. But no, I mean, it is fun to interact with the team and kind of achieve. It's the same kind of thing as I do here, where you're working with someone to create or help visualize, what they're thinking and what they want for their brand, or in this instance with Cirrus, it's what they want for themselves and their families and whoever's going to be, traveling in that plane with them. What's that experience going to be like? And let's create that together. So same thing with shoes. It's like, how do you want this to be perceived on someone's foot? And when you see that in Times Square in New York City and someone's wearing it walking past you, it's like, do you follow it while they walk past you, or like, do they just look past? So it's really just trying to create a memorable experience, whether it's in footwear and aviation, whatever it is. But when someone sees the product, to really just like create some excitement behind it. So.
Well, I want to ask about I want to ask about what you've learned either in your discipline or about the working world. And you've kind of already talked about some of the great things, some of the great life lessons that you've learned along the way. But keeping in mind that current students, future students are watching this, what are some things that you've learned in your time in the working world at any of your jobs that you would want to pass on?
Like networking, I think that was one thing I did in college, and it was maybe uncomfortable at times where it's like I have zero connection to this person and I'm just going to send them a message and hope that they want to talk to me for 15 minutes and I can just learn from them. And I haven't stopped doing that. And I still reach out to people, still even on Instagram, like DM people or whatever. I do it less now than I did, but it's always just like, furthering your network, and not the cheesy network term. It's like building relationships with people. It's like don't lose the connection with people that you want to work with the people that they're in a position that you want to be in someday. Like, how did you get there? Like, what's your experience been like? And like, tell me the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, it's not going to be all sunshine and butterflies. Like, there is going to be some rough parts, and you got to be ready for that. So I think, keep building relationships with people. Is one thing that I've learned. Keep the relationships with people, even if you're working somewhere else. You never know when something might pop up in the future, and they might be the head of the department that you want to work for. And yeah, I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to move. I grew up in Ohio. I went to school in Ohio. My mom's still in Ohio. And I think a lot of people kind of get into this mindset of being afraid to branch out and move to some different areas and figure it out. I mean, you're in your 20s and you can always move back. And I think going out to Colorado, going out to Texas, being here in Knoxville now, it's like the amount of world and things that I've experienced has really shaped me into who I am today. And I think even moving forward, it's just like an excitement behind being in a new area and still being able to go back and visit. You can always buy a plane ticket, you can drive, you can do whatever, but it's been really cool to see some different areas of the country.
So let's say that a student or someone who's trying to get a job with Cirrus is coming to you and they have their portfolio. What's something that you see either in them or in their portfolio that signals to you this person's worth my time? They know what they're talking about. They're worth a second interview. What are you looking for?
I think more right now, I feel like portfolios have changed because of AI and because it's like I could do a sketch on a flat piece of paper and import it into some AI technology and just be like, make this look like a real shoe or make this whatever. And it's like for my capstone with that walking medical boot, like I had to learn Gravity Sketch and model it and take it into Keyshot and apply materials and figure out how to do a lighting environment in Keyshot and watch hours of YouTube videos just to get like an outcome that I thought was good. Whereas now it's like you can take a picture of it and you have a pretty render in 5 seconds. So it's like, I think everyone has the pretty renders. They're not hard anymore. I don't think it's saying that they're a waste of time. I think it's good to know the modeling and Keyshot, but I think process, like showing your process of whether it's mood boards and then showing like sketches and like showing that you actually think about what you're doing and why, and not just like, oh, this looks cool. Like, let's just make this and whatever. And there's times for that. Like there were times where I just modeled a shoe in Gravity Sketch and was like, this looks cool. No way that it could actually be a real thing, but it's like a more art side of things instead of like design. So, and I think that's fine. But I think as far as a career in industrial design or this type of design, footwear design, it's showing your process. And I think also, like I said, just like reaching out to people and showing the interest and writing a cover letter to the hiring manager, finding who the hiring manager is on LinkedIn. It's not that hard to look at a job, see what department the job's in, go to the Cirrus or whoever page and on LinkedIn, scroll through names. It takes time, but scroll through names, figure out who works where, and start messaging people, like, hey, I just applied for this job. Love to talk more about how my skill set aligns with the role, and kind of start it there. And sometimes you're going to get ghosted and you're never going to hear back from them. But sometimes you're going to get someone that's like, that's the only person who has messaged me in this whole hiring process, and I'm going to interview them because they took the extra step.
So, Nick, this has been a great conversation. It's been so nice catching up. I'm so thrilled with where you're at. It seems like you're doing so well. I'm so happy for you. Before we wrap up, is there any other wisdom that you would offer to current students, to future students, anything else you'd want to share?
I'd say don't lose hope. Don't lose the vision of where you want to be, because I think if you think there's a strong thing behind believing in yourself to get to somewhere, working for it, and getting there, there is not a feeling that compares to it. So it's whether it's the job market, and you can hear people say, oh, the job market's horrible. Getting a job right now is the hardest thing in the world. And trust me, I've been in that situation twice. So I get it. But the worst thing that you can do is believe the lies that it's not going to work out and it's not possible. And maybe you should shift and try something else. Just keep pushing and believing in yourself and reaching out to people for advice and encouragement and stories of how they got to where they are, and try to implement some things in your life to see some things happen. So
yeah, that's great advice. And if anyone wants to hear more about your story or wants to see more of your work or connect with you, where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn's probably the best bet. It's just my name, Nick Mahek, and I think my portfolio's on there. I haven't put any planes in it, mainly because it's someone's plane and their tail number is slapped on the side of it. So it's like, maybe if I Photoshop that out and go from there. I haven't had that conversation yet. But I'm 16 planes deep right now, interior and exterior, and only one has delivered. So, across this next year, they're coming out like hotcakes. So it'll be a fun time here.
Well, Nick, it's been an absolute blast catching up with you. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Gabe. Really appreciate you.
All right. See ya.
Bye.